Yes, what's up? Welcome in. It's Foxboro Rush. I'm George Balecki. He's Travis Thomas. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. As always, joining us on the last episode of the week, we'll have Michael Lombardi chiming in. He'll give us a glimpse into what's going down in Foxboro, as always, bringing that great perspective.
Yep.
We also have Connor Rogers of SNY joining us to break down. There is a matchup Sunday to break down the Jets and the Patriots teaming up and playing each other Sunday at 1 p.m. And then we'll end with some outlooks of the future of Jerod, Mayo, and Robert Kraft. But let's bring him in. He's Michael Lombardi. You can catch him on the GM Shuffle. You can catch him on Coach. You can catch him on VSiN. Michael, it's gonna be a fun one today, man. It's been a very active week for the Patriots, to say the least.
Well, they stirred the fire. I mean, look, let's face it. It's a self-inflicted wound. I mean, it's bad enough to be 1-6, but then when you call your team soft, it's just really not, you have no one to blame but yourself. And so you're going to have to be in damage control from this point forward.
Yeah, let's start there. I mean, the Patriots have been a mess. I mean, the coach calls them soft, walks it back. They've lost 6 in a row. The wide receivers are asking for trades on Instagram and in touchdown celebrations. But when you're watching what's going on in Foxboro, what do you see unraveling right now?
Well, you see disorganization. You see a lot of disconnection. You don't see the same. You don't see a team. Here's the most important thing that you have to be able to do. You don't see a team improving every week. They started out in the summer. They looked horrible. No one saw their ability to beat the Cincinnati Bengals in the opener, and they did. And they actually looked better. They blocked better. They really look like they've improved. And then since then, we haven't seen any improvement whatsoever. In fact, we've seen a defense that has gone backwards. And we see a defense that has struggled to cover run or pass. And so, to me, that's what you want as a head coach. You want to try to – look, no one's saying that when Mayo took the job, he had to win the Super Bowl. But what you are saying is we want to get better. They gave up 13 first downs in the opening game, and now last week they gave up 23 first downs to a bad Jacksonville team. That's not improving. And so I think what you want is improvement. You want improvement, and you want somebody who's on top of things. And, Mayo has promoted himself as a delegator. And I said this on my podcast. If he didn't come out at halftime, would anybody notice? Like, at some point, you got to coach the team, right? You can't just critique the team. You got to coach the team. And I wrote this I write the daily. We have a daily coach with the great George Raveling, and everybody writes every week. And I think one of the biggest issues really is when you saw Joe Mazzulla kiss the parquet floor and really honor those who came before him, and really was unbelievably thankful for the 17 other titles that this Celtic team has won in the most in NBA history. Yep. They embrace the past, but all we've seen out of the Patriots is to disassociate themselves with the past. They want to take credit for the past. They want to talk about the greatest coach of all time as if he's never coached a game before. And I think that affects your culture. You can't move forward if you're constantly looking back, destroying the people, whether it's the documentary, whether it's I didn't trust Bill. I gave him too much authority by Robert Kraft. If that's in the past. Robert Kraft has every right to fire Bill, to make a decision, hire a new coach. No one's debating that. But move forward, embrace the 6 titles, and let Mayo start. But here's what I do know, guys. I know this from experience. When we fired Marty Schottenheimer in Cleveland in 1988, after he lost to a playoff game, because there were such expectations, we lost a wild card game to the Houston Oilers. Art Modell fired Marty Schottenheimer. Man won 200 career games. He's on 9th on the all-time list of wins. And we hired Bud Carson because the idea was he could stop John Elway, and John Elway was a thorn in our side. Well, Marty was detailed. Marty was on top of everything. There was nothing he was a great coach. Bud wasn't. And so our program got worse with every week. Now, we ended up going to the conference championship game that year, but by the next year, Bud got fired because the team was a disaster. So my point here is when you go the opposite of what you think you should hire, go from Belichick, who's on top of every detail, to Mayo, who's letting the coaches coach, you're going to ask for some trouble, and there's going to be a lot of growing pains.
I want to piggyback off that and use a word that you used with the culture, because on the coaches podcast that you do, you mentioned the Patriots are a kinder and gentler program. Can you please explain that? Because it sounds like it has to do with the Mayo culture.
Those are my words. No, those are Elliot. Those are Elliot Wolf's words. One thing when you work for Coach Belichick, everybody's under pressure to perform, whether you're in the scouting department, whether you're on the coaching staff, whether you're on the player. Everybody has a standard to raise their game to. Mm-hmm. And if you're not raising your level to the standard that has been set by him, right, then everybody is going to be in trouble, right? It's not just the players, it's the players, coaches, staff, everybody. You've never heard Belichick go to a press conference say, well, the players played poor, but we coach great. Of course he never said that, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody has a standard of excellence that they have to get to. And if you don't get there, then you're going to be. And so when you come in and say, well, we wanted to go easier on the players. We want to be, let the players breathe a little bit. Well, look, I've been around football my whole life. I've never seen that breathing and relaxed atmosphere work. We're talking about a highly competitive field. We're talking about really tough. The great teams, you look at all the championship teams, they have attention to detail and they have discipline. And most importantly, they have accountability, which is really responsibility, right? There's a difference between accountability and responsibility. Mm-hmm. Responsibility means you do it because it's ingrained in your system. Like for me, for example, I live in this house. If I see a picture that isn't straight because it's gotten crooked, because Bill Walsh was obsessed with making sure every picture in the facility was aligned. If I don't fix the picture, I've lost my responsibility. If Walsh had to go tell me to go straighten the picture out, that's accountability. See, that's the difference in leadership. And Mayo sells himself off as this great leader. And I have not seen any leadership that I would say, boy, that's something that's really good.
Yeah, we see when Bill Belichick comes out, and he would always talk about, if the players are playing soft, that's on me. That's a coach. I'm taking accountability. Yep. We've seen Tom Brady, Devin McCourty, Ty Law speak publicly asking for more. Again, that word used, accountability. Do you think we'll see that from Jerod Mayo? Because he also came out and said it's still DeMarcus's defense, but DeMarcus Covington, to his credit, speaking to the media on Thursday, said the run defense hasn't been good, and that's on me. But do you think we'll see less delegation and more hands-on responsibility and accountability from Jerod Mayo?
This is the hardest lesson for any young coach to learn. There's only two people in the organization that winning matters to. Everybody else, it doesn't, right? Let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. If Alex Van Pelt was coaching Drake May, and Drake May was the best rookie quarterback, and he was having one hell of a year, and they only won 2 games, Alex Van Pelt would get a job tomorrow being an offense coordinator.
Yep.
Nothing to do with winning. Winning is irrelevant for Alex Van Pelt. It's irrelevant for Covington. Now, they want to do a good job and win, but if their numbers are good and they're having a great year, they'll get another job. But you're the head coach. You're in charge of winning. You're the general manager. Your job is on the line to win. There's only 2 people in the company that the owner is evaluating on wins. Everybody else, they're not. And so to me, when you just say, well, it's the Covington's defense, well, what did I hire you for? What is your job? Mm-hmm. You should go over and help fix the defense. But see, Mayo doesn't have enough experience to go do that. That's the problem. And so how does he fix the defense? You can't – look, I think to me, I'm a huge Sopranos fan. And if you watch the David Chase documentary, every single word that was ever said on The Sopranos, David Chase controlled. Every detail he controlled. Because why? It was his baby. It was so important to him. He wanted it perfect. Mm-hmm. That's leadership. That's not micromanaging. That's leadership. It's so important we're leading. But when you say, well, I'm going to decentralize, I'm going to give it to this guy, you're not leading. You're passing the buck.
Yeah. Look, we're big Sopranos fans too, Michael. So I want to ask you this. If this guy, Jerod Mayo, gets this 1 win, or let's call it 2 wins here. I mean, I know he was handpicked by Robert Kraft, but I've been saying I think he gets whacked. It doesn't matter because in this league, 1 or 2 wins, that's what happens. You get whacked. Gut feeling from you. If they win 2 wins, just for the sake of this conversation, Michael, do you believe Jerod Mayo is fired as a head coach?
No, I don't, because they're going to say I inherited a bad team. Although they ignore that Washington was a worse team than New England last year, and Washington's winning. So they have a built-in excuse. They've already built in excuse. I don't think Robert's going to admit he made a mistake. Look, the last time they played the Jets, he proudly announced to the world that he handpicked Mayo 7 years ago, that he knew he was going to be a great coach. Look, I've said this many times on my podcast. I've said it to Robert Kraft's face. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. He belongs in the Hall of Fame because he made a Hall of Fame decision to hire the greatest coach of all time when everybody told him not to do it. Everybody in the league said, don't hire Bill Belichick. It won't work. And he won 6 Super Bowls doing something that nobody else does. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for that decision alone. For that decision, that's what owners are in charge of. The franchise. You made a franchise decision. And he belongs in the Hall of Fame for that, just like Eddie DeBarlo belongs in the Hall of Fame for hiring Bill Walsh. Nothing else that he did mattered. He hired Bill Walsh. He won titles. So for me, I don't see Robert giving up on this easy, because he's put his neck out there saying that, hey, look, I saw greatness in Mayo. I saw it 7 years ago.
When you talk about, and you bring it up, that you don't see him doing it, and that's the only reason I can see Jerod Mayo making a pass this season if it continues at this pace. But do you see Robert Kraft admitting that he was wrong with the hires he made or the promotions he made? You could put it that way too, of Jerod Mayo to head coach and Ellie Wolf fully taking on this front office, where we've seen this team get worse from last season, and they only won 4 games last season.
Well, look, they were in 4 games last year. They lost. They were in 8 games. They lost by 1 score. Chad Rylands made 2 kicks for the Arizona Cardinals that he never made for the Patriots. Yeah. Had he made a few kicks for the Patriots, there might have been, instead of having 4 wins, they might have had 6 wins. So, look, that's the bounce of the ball. I get it, and certainly they were not good last year. I'm not defending last year at all, but I do know this. I know that it's tough for owners to admit they made a mistake. They have the ball. They have the pen last. They can do it. Now, if the fans start having this, if all the media outlets are coming against them, because, look, nobody had a better offseason than Mayo did. He was kinder. He was gentler. He was easy to talk to. He wasn't Bill. Everything was popular. We loved Mayo, all that. Well, sit back and watch the games. See how much you love it.
Yeah, it's an S show. How's that sound? Michael, if you're in the building, what changes are you trying to make now? I mean, a lot of things feel too late. You and I have talked about this before, about the offensive line. It's too late. That was a blind spot in the offseason. But right now, is there anything that can be done, sweeping changes that can be made in the building to help this out, to stop the bleeding, Michael?
No, you got to get Mayo to coach the team. You got to get Mayo to be more demanding on the assistant coaches. Look, Bill Walsh said this all the time to me. He said, when the assistant coaches are happy, we're not winning. Somebody's got to drive the coaches. Somebody's got to push the players. Look, we got to go. We got to get going. But when you sell your whole program around riding bikes in the locker room, being kinder and gentler, how do you turn it back on? It's like the same thing we do with our kids. It's the same thing we do with our children. If we let them get away with it and we don't parent, then they're going to keep doing it. There's an old saying in coaching, you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen. And once you've allowed it to happen, it's hard to change, because now the players say, well, now you become a jerk. This isn't the way it was this summer.
Yeah. Do you see a win left on the schedule for them, Michael? It's an honest question. It's tough to find one.
I think, could they beat Arizona? I think that maybe. Tennessee next week in Tennessee, that's one. But after that, I don't see one. Maybe Indianapolis, because Indy can't play run defense. But, I think if they could get the Chargers, they have the Chargers at home in cold weather. Maybe the Chargers a little too, like when Arizona went to Green Bay, you knew they were going to lose. They were so scared of the cold.
Right.
That would be the only one. I mean, they're not. Look, they're going to have the first. They're going to, either them or Carolina are going to have the first pick in the draft.
Yeah, and we'll see what they do at that point. They need a left tackle, but they need a lot more.
Trade back
on this roster. Wouldn't hate it. He's Michael Lombardi, host of the GM Shuffle. Catch him on Coach. Catch him every morning on VSiN. You could catch him every Friday here on Foxboro Rush. Michael, appreciate you taking the time as always,
Thank
my
you,
friend.
guys. Appreciate it.